Hey guys, Professor Bell, Comic Book University, and this week we're going to be talking about slashing weapons and claws. It's going to be a really messed up thing. First off, I want to apologize for missing last week. I had a technical difficulty called an exclusive interview with Jim Starlin, the creator of Thanos and many others, so hashtag sorry not sorry. Anyway, and you can check that out on Comic Book University. Alright, back to the actual game itself. So check this out. Claws are one of the most claws and edge weapons are one of the most ridiculous things and most inconsistent things in the entire game. No, seriously, prove me wrong. So the biggest way to look at how incredibly messed up the whole situation is just look at Wolverine. Okay, what does his claw damage do? Does it only do 10 points of damage? Does it do 50 points of damage? Like somewhere in between, sometimes it says 20 points of damage. The material strength of his claws, is it Arthur 100? Is it Class 1000? You know what? There's multiple different places in multiple books that will say many different things. So, yeah, is it a unique weapon? Is it natural weaponry? Is it, what the heck do they call it in the ultimate player's guide, for crying out loud, what is this thing called? Yeah, natural weaponry. Natural weaponry would be F3 in your ultimate player's book. It will, it's on page 28, looks like page 28. Either way, it'll say F2, but that's wrong. That's wrong. It's actually F3. Just look at the one before it. It also says F2, and also check the index. It's F3. So up to everything around edge weapons, man, everything. It's just so, oh man, they make it so complicated because everybody's doing something different. So we're going to try and simplify this as much as we can by looking at the basics of what the rules say. Now, this is going to be in your advanced second edition, your advanced edition, the player's book, and you can turn to page 24. Now, you're going to see the little area there called edge attacks. Let's see if I can actually get to these darn edge attacks. The edge attack is an attack with claws, teeth, or edged weapons such as knives, swords, or hatchets. This is the renamed version of hack and slash column of the original set. So in the original yellow box, the first yellow box, not the second one, which actually came out after this edition, you're going to have the hack and slash table. All the editions after that, both editions after that, it's edge attack. So obviously you can get a hit, a stun, or a kill. Now basically, what this is essentially coming down to is that you can combine this with certain fighting styles. You will do the damage that is listed. Now, the damage listed is going to be based on the material strength. The material strength is also going to be your damage. I know, it sounds really weird, right? So, whether you're using claws or, you know, on fingernails, claws on the back of your hand, a sword, or you're using, what do you call it, teeth, right? Anything like that, spikes growing out of you, whatever. You're going to have a material strength. Now, the material strength will be the exact same as your damage for these claws, all right, for these edge weapons. That's the way that it works. Now, there are other ways around this. You could take limitations. You could say, okay, how about I do a +1 column shift to the material strength, but it'll do a -1 column shift to the damage. Okay, awesome. Another limitation you could do is that you don't affect your damage at all, but you'll increase your material strength by +2 column shift by taking a limitation either on your claws or whatever edge weapon you're using, or some other power. So if you say, okay, I've got light generation, but the only thing I can do is make a big light blast, I can't actually use power stunts. Okay, cool. +2 column shift to the material strength of your claws. So if you rolled an incredible 40, you'll still be doing incredible 40 damage, but you'll be having monstrous 75 material strength. Cool, so potentially titanium claws, right? And each limitation that you do will increase your material strength by +2 column shifts. So how did Wolverine get such high material strength for his claws? Well, now you know. Except for the idea that you can't actually shift past the darned Shift Z 500 and Class 1000. There's that gap there. We've talked about the gap before. So, yeah, that gap. Don't forget, you can't actually cross that gap. So, how'd they do it? I don't know. It's stupid. They don't explain it. They just say, here you go. Like I said, guys, the most ridiculous thing you're going to come across is claws. So hopefully this video will help you to figure some of these things out, but what I'm really hoping to do is let you know the basics, because the advanced stuff is just ridiculous and all over the place. But on top of that, I'm hoping that by knowing the basics, you'll be able to work on your own system for what to do. Okay, let's get started with a couple more things here. With edge attacks, and that's whether it's melee edge, thrown edge, or shooting attacks. Those three, remember, you cannot reduce the damage. I know, it sounds ridiculous, right? It sounds absolutely ridiculous. There's certain things you could do that would switch that around. For instance, I'm making this on July 1st of 2018. And yeah, happy Canada Day for everybody who's up here. The trick of this is you can always make certain little, not even just necessarily limitations, but a power stunt perhaps. Why not consider a power stunt where you can actually reduce damage? Case in point, issue number 49, which just came out recently, of Batman, features Catwoman fighting the Joker. And at one point she uses a single claw, not all the claws on her fingernails, but the one claw, and she slices, just nicks, his carotid artery. So he starts bleeding out, and he's got to hold that in place, and it's DC Comics, so of course it's even more fantastical than any of the other comic book companies out there, so let it go. So she's able to do a lot less damage, but she does get a kill result, right? So she's a bad guy. She's okay with it. She's okay with it. So maybe consider, like, with a power stunt, you can reduce the damage. Very easy to explain if you use Black Cat. You just using one claw, or lesser, only 3 claws instead of all 5 or something to that effect. Let's say you're Wolverine. You've seen the thing where he'll retract 2 claws and only slice with 1 or something like that, or do that thing where he has 2 claws come up like that, boom, and then the 3rd claw slowly comes up. He's like, 1, 2, you don't want me to count to 3, bub. So there's all sorts of different things you could do, and a power stunt would definitely be a great idea for lower damage. But mind you, that is absolutely my rule. That's a house rule kind of thing. So you decide, is that good enough for you? Now, again, that is very important to understand. On its own, you cannot do less damage. Now, what is the damage of claws? Let's say you make a higher material strength, like we talked about, but you keep your damage the same. You've seen it many times where characters like, let's say, the Armadillo, he's got what is his strength? Like Monster 75, Amazing 50, something ridiculous, something really high, but his claws only do 30 points of damage. Here's the trick with that, and this is actually in the Advanced Player's Book. This is in your blue book for the Player's Guide. 30 is the minimum you can do. Yes, the damage is minimum, but the maximum damage you can do is based on your material strength and your physical strength. So you have to have the musculature to actually back up what you're going to do. So let's say you've got a monstrous strength, but you've got 30 points of damage for your claws. Now, as long as it doesn't indicate that the material strength of your claws are less, then you're okay. And case in point, if you've got body armor of Amazing 50, I'm going to say that you can easily pass that on to your claws. If they're natural, weaponry like that, I'm going to say that's just kind of a given. I mean, powers should absolutely be able to work together, coalesce together, whatever, along those lines. So if that's the case, then either way, you can do the maximum damage of your strength or your material strength, whichever is lower. So let's say you've got Amazing 75 body armor, Monster 75 body armor, Amazing 50 material strength for your claws, and then you do 30 points of damage for your claws. All right? This is easy. The minimum damage you can do is 30. Without a house rule power stunt, you cannot do less than 30 points of damage. But you can easily do 50 points of damage if you want. You're just not going to be able to do 75 points of damage because the material strength doesn't back that up. And you could, if you did try to do, here's another house rule. If you did try to do up to your strength damage, edge damage with your claws, but your material strength just doesn't cut it, you're going to have to make a roll. All right, so you determine how that's going to go. Me personally, I would say, okay, you're only you're trying to do one column shift higher. Okay, then you've got to get a green feet roll to avoid breakage. Or you could simply say, you know what, as long as it's not, you know, within two, as long as it's not an impossible feat, why not? Just do a yellow feet roll, just call it even. You do a yellow feet roll, you don't break any of your claws. All right, that's simple. That's simple. So there are all sorts of different ways you can do this. Again, you're going to have to, inevitably, you're going to have to house rule stuff because claw damage, edge damage, it's all over the place. So when we're talking about, let's see if, I believe that this page over here should be it. Bada boom. Okay, force fields. Force fields, you cannot do claw damage. If it's a personal force field, that means it's actually on the person's skin or really close to the person's skin, then you're probably okay with it. You know, so you could probably do your claw damage and potentially any extra damage that the force field doesn't cover, you'd probably be able to do that damage to that person. Unless it says differently, like, oh, the force field is definitely 1 foot away and you've only got, you know, an 11-inch claw, you know, something along those lines. If you got a sword and you're going to impale something, that's an entirely different story, but that's the deal. If it's not a personal force field, no, you do not do any damage. If you've got 75 points of claw damage, this guy's got a 20-point shield, an excellent 20 shield. Okay, you knock down the shield, there's a chance that this guy's going to get knocked over or knocked out. Right? There's a good chance he or she's going to go unconscious, but regardless, your claw damage, your edge damage does not penetrate. The shield stays up long enough to protect that person, anybody else in there. Forget about it. Just let that one go, all right? The next attack is what you're looking for. Now, this is on page 29. Claws are given a power rank and a material strength, so that's actually where that comes from. The favorite example is Wolverine. Class 1000 materials claws only inflict good 10 damage. Later on, or in the same paragraph, Wolverine shreds with unearthly ability. The problem is, it doesn't say in there how that happens. It doesn't say where that comes from. There is nothing in here to indicate where that's actually coming from. Even if you were to look at it and try and be, you know, sneaky with it, okay, class 1000, good 10. What if we were to just bap, 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 like go one-on-one with each other? It would still be under monstrous. If you try to bring the two together, it would go under monstrous, not unearthly. So, like, I don't know where they're getting that from. It's ridiculous where they come up with that number from. What the F? So it's frustrating. It's mind-numbing where they come up with these things from. So regardless, if you're going to be going after something that is more powerful than you, but it's inorganic, okay? Again, this is where it just gets weird. First off, they indicate that you can't, Wolverine will never be able to hurt Ben Grimm, the Thing, right? At the same time, what was it, only 5 years after this was made? Maybe 6 years, but I think it was 5 years after this was made, there was that famous Fantastic Four issue where Ben Grimm got his face cut off by Wolverine, who went into berserker mode and was like, oops, oh my God, he snapped out of it. Somehow he snapped out of his berserker rage immediately. Ben, I'm so sorry. Get away from me! And just like knocks him out, literally knocks him out and sends him flying. Oof, it's really bad. And he's got to wear that face shield, that helmet over top of his head for a really long time until that organic rock heals. All right, so he actually gets his face back, so to speak, but it's all pink and fleshy underneath. So, ew. But according to the rules, that shouldn't have been able to happen. He can only do 10 points damage. He's sitting there scratching like a cat. Yay, Ben Grimm. So, yeah, you got to make your own rules for this. Whatever they're going to sit here and say that you do, you got to make your own rules. Now, this is not so different from blunt physical attacks, right? The important part is to remember that you base everything on material strength. Okay, that to me is the most important part. I'm actually okay with the idea of you look at your physical strength and the material strength of the claws, and then you come to that gap in between. So let's say you do have a monstrous 75 material strength for claws. and then you've got a good 10 strength. Okay, let's just keep going in, and it would end up between remarkable or incredible. Okay, so let's just say for the sake of conversation, 35. You do 35 points of damage, and that's to physical items or organic items. Because personally, honestly, I don't see a difference. I myself, I don't see a difference. A knife cuts things, or it doesn't cut things. It really depends on your physical strength and the material strength of the item. Case in point, if I've got a regular kitchen knife, okay, like a steak knife, that thing is pliable. If I go and try and stab a brick wall, the knife is going to break. If I were to use a knife made out of hardened osmium somehow, right? The densest material that we have on Earth. It's just extremely rare. Yeah, osmium is a real material. Former electrical engineer, so I have to know the periodic table. Well, I had to. Anyway, if I would take something like that and stab a wall, hey man, you know what I'm saying? When I was younger and I used to do push-ups all the time, I'm sure that I could at the very least nick that wall. If I were to get it in the mortar instead of the brick, I could probably slice right in between it. You know what I'm saying? But that's one thing. But then if I would, of course, use a plastic picnic knife, that knife is going to shatter. I might wind up getting it stuck in my fingers because, you know, it's going to break on me. So your physical strength and material strength, it's important. It's like the difference between hitting somebody with an aluminum baseball bat or a swimming pool noodle. You know what I'm saying? Like something made out of Nerf or styrofoam. It doesn't matter how strong you are. The material strength is lower. You can't hurt somebody with it, you know? You can always kill an ant with it. So that's the thing that's really important, as far as I'm concerned, in regards to claws. That to me is the most important, the most obvious feature to consider. So what else are we looking at here? Claws. Claws are given a material. This is on page 29, which I already read to you guys. So let's move on to the next one, Durf. Let's see here. Entangling weapons. No, don't need any of that stuff. Nope. We're good. Yeah, guys, that's how crazy this is. So we're gonna forget about all that and let's just go to the back of the book and let's look up claws themselves on page 86. So again, it only makes sense. This is gonna have to also be considered with edge weapons like a sword. Okay, it's simply not. It's not feasible enough otherwise. If you're gonna roll up a unique weapon, you're going to be using the claw talent, so to speak. So you might hear some fireworks outside. Happy Canada Day. I'm an American in Canada, so I have nothing to celebrate. Claws are, well, claws on page 86. The power ranks list both the damage inflicted and all that good stuff. So all of this stuff, this is stuff that I'd explained. But the problem here is this applies to body armor that is not natural, meaning inborn, as well as doors, walls, computer terminals, freelancers. I don't see how freelancers has anything to do with that. A freelance worker? Like, what does that mean? So a freelancer is not an inanimate object? Because I think that they kind of are. This does not apply to body armor and constructs such as force fields. So, once again, Wolverine goes up against a Sentinel with his unearthly material strength claws. And you'd like to say that's a typo, but it's the second typo. It's the second time that's happened, which inflict good damage. If he attacks the Sentinel directly, he won't get too far. The robot's body armor is too thick. If he concentrates on the armor, however, he can shred it with a red feet roll. Why? Why? How? What's the rules for that? None of that makes sense. And guys, I'm talking about even going into the judge's manual and looking up Wolverine's, the Wolverine the Wolverine's stats himself, the character, and trying to figure that out. Can't understand it. Now, you've got like the Children of the Atom book and a whole bunch of other books that will also have Wolverine in it, and they'll all have their own explanations, but they also vary differently, like in the damage that he can do. So this was a direct request, which of course I had to get to anyway, but the point of this is the most difficult thing to understand in this game is the inconsistencies that revolve around edge damage. And Wolverine is the greatest culprit of all of that. So again, I'm going to finalize this in this way. You have to make your own house rules based on the rules that are consistent, at the very least, in the book. So again, my way of doing this is, let's say you've got excellent 20 strength, and you've got claws that are monstrous 75 damage. Monstrous 75 material strength. You're going to simply go in one on both ways until you meet in the middle, and there you're going to actually end up with incredible 40. Okay, my opinion, my personal house rules. Your claws do incredible 40 damage. Your material strength is strong enough that, hey, you can block something that's going to do a lot more. And you could potentially, so you can use instead of using your strength to block things, you'll be able to use your material strength for your claws or sword or whatever to actually do blocking. All right? Boom, there you go. But it's also still your endurance that you're going to have to deal with when it comes time for, having to resolve a slam attack or a stun attack or something to that effect. So that's why somebody like the Black Knight could absolutely block a hammer swipe by Thor, but he's still going to go flying, Now, if you have something very specific like, let's say, Captain America's shield, hey man, that actually absorbs vibrations, so he's got a better chance of avoiding that, even though it says in the player's handbook, no, that's not actually the case. So it's baffling. This is the hardest, craziest thing to make sense of in the Marvel Superheroes Advanced Role-Playing Game system. But with enough house rules and enough consistency following those house rules, you can simplify it a lot. And that's important. Remember, guys, the rules are not there to rule you, to guide, to do anything more than guide you. I do not consider myself beholden to the rules. I'm beholden to logic. I'm beholden to what I feel is common sense in certain regards. And if I see inconsistency after inconsistency, well, then I will make constant that which is chaotic. So, no, the rules are not my overlord. I am the overlord of the rules. The rules are there to assist. I am there to judge. And I highly recommend that you consider the same. All right, guys, that's going to be it. I hope that this was able to make some kind of sense of this, wow, diamond in the rough that is edge attack damage. All right, guys, Professor Bill, Comic Book University. Class dismissed.
Thank you.